Ball. Should the insanity defense be abolished?
Should the insanity defense be abolished?
Or why this insanity defense should be abolished? See this one.
All right. We're pretty well set up, folks. Hey. Take your time.
Touching the ground? No, but it fell, so yes. Cool. No.
Would it be fair to say you threw it on the ground? All right. Audience, are you ready?
Yep.
Jack, are you ready?
Yep.
And proceed.
I know that all of us in this room at one point in our life we got out of something because we just didn't know better. Whether we remember it or not, we got out of something because we either weren't A, smart enough, or B, weren't thinking clearly because we were in a state of mental chaos. This is essentially what the insanity defense is. In fact, described in an article from Cornell Law, there is two types of pleading for mental illness, that is insanity and diminished capacity. Although the defense known as diminished capacity bears some resemblance to the reason of insanity defense, in both examples, it is due to a lack of mental efficiency. In insanity, you are essentially pleading not guilty to a crime, whereas with diminished capacity, you are pleading for a lesser sentence than typically would be given for said crime. Now, there's a couple of very historic events that happened with pleading for insanity, and that's what I'll be discussing today. And these are very prime examples of why the insanity defense should be abolished. The first one I will talk to you about is on March 30th, 1981, a man by the name of John W. Hinckley Jr. made an attempt on the life of the president then, Ronald Reagan. Well, this may have failed and put him on trial, and he actually did end up hitting John Brady, which ended up bringing about a gun control law. He was on trial in 1991, and it was determined that he would be spending life in a mental asylum rather than prison. However, the University of Missouri-Kansas City School of Law stated in 2011, while they were conducting research on this, that he was actually doing it to try and get the attention of Jodie Foster, who was an actress at the time, and if you watched Taxi, she was the actress depicting the 12-year-old in that movie. So he had developed an infatuation for her, and that was what ended up driving him insane and to the point of committing this crime. He thought it was the only way to get her attention. Now, this is something that is very controversial because people are saying he wasn't insane, he was just doing it to get attention, which under the insanity defense is something that goes towards your mental deficiency, which would put him in an insane asylum. However, with this, he was known for being a very irrational person all the time. It wasn't just this moment of insanity that ended up putting him in the mental asylum. He was actually tracking down Jimmy Carter when he was still president, and he had been known for being like this, and it was due to the Secret Service being lax that he eventually got through to Ronald Reagan. He ended up getting put away, but this is one of the most prime examples why the insanity defense should be abolished. A second one is Richard Lawrence shot 2 pistols at Andrew Jackson. They both misfired, but he ended up sentenced for 26 years in prison. This was the first ever assassination attempt on a president. Funny story about this one, he actually claimed he was the heir to the English throne and the Roman throne, and he pled insanity within 5 minutes of court being in session. The jury immediately went out to deliberate and said, this guy's insane. We need to lock him away, but we can't put him in a prison because he won't do fine. They deliberated for 5 minutes before coming back. This is one instance. This was before the time that the insanity defense was really established. Was one of the first instances of it, and this one is understandable. However, when it comes to more extreme ones like Daniel Sickles shooting Philip Barton Key, the son of Francis Scott Key, who, if you all know, wrote the Star Spangled Banner. He ended up shooting Philip Barton Key for an affair he had in 1854 with his wife. Back in the day, even compared to now, the justice system standards were quite low. And he got acquitted on all trials for shooting and killing a district attorney because people agreed with him. However, when you look back at this case, he shot a man for simply him sleeping with his wife, which is not something that is morally acceptable in any right. And he was acquitted. He went to a mental institution for about 5 years before being released. And finally, the last story I have for you is John Schrank shooting Teddy Roosevelt. There was never a fully given reasoning behind this, although it is stated that when in a court, not in a courtroom, in an interrogation room with his lawyer where no one else was in there, he reported that William McKinley, the former president, appeared to him in a dream and told him to shoot him. See, this is someone just trying to get out of it. And this is where a lot of the insanity defense comes into play, is when people just want to get out of something because you're pleading for not guilty rather than just admitting you did something. And that is why it needs to be abolished.
Thank you.
503-68.
504-44.
Darn.
Spit facts about the Teddy Roosevelt one.
I don't know that I knew about Teddy Roosevelt.
So he got shot the day before a campaign speech, and it shot through his glasses case, through his 50-page campaign speech, and lodged 3 inches into his chest. And when he was at the doctor, the doctor said that he needed to say, but he insisted that he has to go and campaign for his second term. So he ended up dying with a bullet lodged 3 inches in his chest. It didn't push itself out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that sounds vaguely familiar.
Gunshot can't stop a bull moose. I had 3. I know. CJ, I'm sorry I didn't use the attention.
No, you're fine.
It was a little bit in poor taste. So it's like, are you notoriously bad for getting the attention from him? I don't think it was.
Yeah, I guess.
That one would have been in poor taste.
And he's really shooting. Asking if it's really always question.
Really glad I just have this soup put on, so I can tell it's like my brain wanted me to reach my lapel. So yeah, just sit on that. Straight over. I think I have 9. I'm getting better. Getting good starts to the speech straight off. Or I stop now. I take the grade.
All right, Andy, what is your topic?
Do working parent on children.
Oh, do you have your?
Find out.
All right, audience, have you prepared yourself? Indeed. Andy, are you ready? And proceed.
According to Market Watch in 2019, 41% of American adults believe that increase in working mothers is bad for society. I'll be talking about if working parents harm children, and it all depends on the family structure. There's positive and negatives, and like different events in their life. According to Wild Parenting in 2019, earlier when there was a joint family system, raising a child was not a difficult task, as there are multiple caretakers from apart from the mother, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. Everyone helped in raising the child or kids in the family. Since recent times, the increasing trend of nuclear families emerging in the country. The working class parents had no other option but to leave their kids alone. So a joint family is when you have family members and relatives living in like the same town as you. So on your way to work, you could drop them off and you don't have to pay for daycare or anything. And there'll still be a caretaker in your family. But then there's a new trend of nuclear families, and it's a big thing now where your relatives live far away and you can't really drop them off to work, so you either leave them alone, buy daycare or pay for daycare, or hire a nanny. So according to the first grade parenting of 2018, parents are the first teachers in a child's life and play a pivotal role in shaping their adult life. With the advent of families that where both parents are at work, this parent-child relationship has also faced positive and negative impact. There is more disposable income for the parents to spend on the child, but less time to engage effectively with their children. So some positive, you have a better quality of life because with 2 incomes, you get more money, and you with that you go on more trips and get more stuff for your children. Well, with one parent working, say they make about the same amount of money, you'd be able to do about half the stuff you do right now, if that. Your children learn to value time because you're not with them all the time. So they'll learn when time is precious and you should be or have time when you need it, and spend time with your family when you can. It will make your children more independent because you're not always there for them, you're usually at work. So they'll have to learn how to deal with stuff themselves, clean up after themselves, cook food for themselves. And with work, when one parent's home all the time, they don't have to do that because that parent there to do it all for them. And then they'll also learn to deal with stress better. So they'll see that as a parent, you'll be able to balance your work and home life, and they'll learn to adapt that and learn to face challenges head on. According to Swaddle of 2020, what's more, researchers found maternal employment between the 1st and 5th year of the child's life might even be beneficial. It was associated with the higher rates of academic achievement for the child later, and a less internalized negative behavior as compared to the child whose mother stayed at home during the first 5 years of their life. So that's just saying they have better academic success rate with less negative impact on their life. Now some negatives. With both parents working, you'll probably have to buy a daycare or nanny. That could bring some psychological problems. Because if you don't get the right daycare and nanny, they won't have a lot of attention for the kid. And that also goes with behavioral problems for the same reason. And the behavioral problems that'll come up, that they'll be more angry and unsocialized and stuff. And then also bonding. With bonding, with the parents staying at home all the time, they get to spend all the time with their kid, and when both parents are working, they won't have as much time spent with the kids, so they won't bond as much. And over the years, that gap could widen because when they become teenagers, they'll go hang out with their friends more and all that. And then some life events. So if working parents can't make it to all your school events or activities and stuff like that, so you could sit down with your children, teach them to prioritize what events are important that they want you to come see. Other than with a parent staying at home, they can make to almost any event that you want them, need them to. So with the different family structures, all the positive and negative events and the different events in their life, working parents can have a bigger positive effect than negative effect on children.
Thank you.
50204.
Are you kidding? Oh, 50205.
I thought to myself today that this is gonna be the day you're gonna get one apart.
Did you?
I
Nice.
thought like you're gonna get one apart of all of you. It's gonna be like today. I just had this feeling that you were gonna get it. I mean, like just by one. Off by one.
Do you want to pick my lottery numbers?